Hi you guys, I'm Asmara and welcome back to the channel. So y'all, it is still Black History Month around these parts, and throughout this entire month I've been revisiting some of my existing content on the channel that has brought light to Black experiences, Black struggles, Black joy, and so we are continuing that today. In today's video, I want to talk about this sort of idea that gaming content is sometimes, not from us, but from outside people can sometimes be seen as frivolous and like a waste of time, and it's not always very respected in the content creator space, at least from my perspective. And I want to challenge that and encourage anybody watching this video to challenge that bias as well. So for today's video, I am pulling two clips from my Kwanzaa Unwrapped series. If you missed Kwanzaa Unwrapped, it was a series I did during December 2024, highlighting Black educators, creators, and entrepreneurs who I think are redefining Black culture and what we generally associate Black people thriving and succeeding in. I wanted to kind of challenge those things and show that there's no wrong way to be Black. So if you missed out on those videos, I'll be sure to link them below. But today in particular, I pulled two clips to kind of talk about the ways that two of my guests have been able to use different forms of media that they enjoy as education tools for their audiences. The first clip features Nimbly, who talks about how her former career as a scientist in the STEM field influences the content creation that she does today. Nimbly is definitely a multi-hyphenate. She has many passions, and she has used that to build a unique gaming audience that maybe society at large may not necessarily expect. I'm a firm believer that Black history education does not just have to look one type of way, but you can be learning from Black perspectives all year round. And so that's kind of what I wanted to get into with today's video. So without further ado, let's get into the first clip. I feel like this is kind of a good like segue into your career, because you are a scientist, correct? Or that was your career before. Can you kind of explain like how you got into that? Like I was reading something and it says you had experience in computer science, biotech research, and development in scientific communications field. I have no idea what that means, so I'm curious how you got into that.
Cool. Well, you know what's so funny? Kiara mentioned earlier that one of the cards in her like cue card game, which I think is really cool. That's actually how I like to bond with people. So I'm gonna have to go and get a deck on my own. I'm like, okay, I'll just pull this out one day when I get nervous. But yeah, I do like astrology. I won't talk about it too much, but I'm a Gemini. I have like a lot of random interests like all over the place, and I went into the science field in kind of a weird backwards way, and I had always been interested in it, but it's just a little bit of a sad segue, but right before I graduated high school, one of my parents passed away. So I had to work just to help take care of my family. So I didn't go straight to university. And in that time, it was kind of a good break, just because that's a very traumatic thing to go through in general, but especially at that transitional point in life. So I spent a great deal of time just kind of figuring out what direction I wanted to go. And because originally I wanted to go to university for animation so that I could make almost like a magic school bus type of show so that I could, teach science and just like general literacy, but in an approachable format. Because where I grew up, just a literacy in general, regardless of age, was just very low. And I knew that a big part of that was just because of institutional racism and intergenerational trauma, and some people don't have the capacity to go to school. So I was like, okay, people like cartoons and TV shows, like that might be something. But that ended up going in a different direction because I was like, I don't want to pay for art school and then not have a job. So then I figured like, oh, I'll get into computer science because I'm on my computer all day playing video games and I really like programming math. So I stuck with that for quite a while. And I had been basically just burnt out because, like I said, I was helping to take care of like the rest of my family and trying to go to school. And I just essentially just burnt out completely and just decided to work for about 6 years. So within that time, I was still studying and I was still connecting with other folks and I was still working on like data science projects and things like that. And it was kind of like a grassroots exploration. I'm really lucky that I'm from the Bay Area originally. So there's a lot more opportunity for folks if they don't have their undergrad or certification completed to still work on like keystone projects and stuff like that. And yeah, I basically just did kind of like odd jobs and projects at nonprofits, um, and at startups, because that particular startup, um, the CEO worked with Lawrence Hall in Berkeley. So I was working with some really brilliant people from all over the world, and I was so grateful. I got to lead some of my own projects in the time that I was there. We were helping people get cancer treatment across the world more efficiently. That was awesome. But then I got burnout from that because it's a startup and you got to work something like 70 hours a week. Um, and then I transitioned into doing content creation full time.
That's a perfect segue because my next question is about your content creation journey and how you
Okay.
got into it. I also want to talk a little bit about how you implement your various passions into your stream community. So we talked a little bit about your, background with science. I also know that you love art and fashion. How do you implement these different, I guess, attributes and interests into your community?
Well, I'm laughing because I'm like, how silly should I be right now? So you know when people gatekeep their interests and they're like, no, I'm not going to talk to anyone about it. I'm the opposite of that. I'm like, kick the knob off of the fire hydrant and just, you will like this stuff. I'm going to talk to you about this, and you can do the same to me. Like, let's share. I think that that comes from having been bullied when I was younger and feeling like I didn't have that space to be my full self. I try to invite that environment by just sharing the things that I like and being genuinely curious about other folks, even if it's like F1. I just got into it because a friend of mine is really into it, and I'm like, okay, cars going fast, but she's so passionate about the engineering, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna learn about this too. And it goes back to the literacy thing that I mentioned earlier, where I feel if I'm able to connect art and fashion and science to just regular day-to-day things that people enjoy, it'll make them more curious and open and hopefully think more critically about things. I think that if I can normalize just curiosity in every part of people's life, then it'll make them less resistant to facts. For example, if I were going to talk about this necklace that I'm wearing, it's a vintage Vivienne Westwood necklace, and I would explain to my community like how Vivienne Westwood as a fashion house started and like where she got a lot of her early inspiration from, and then connecting it like whatever era that was from to a game that we were playing, and then connecting that information to real world history. And eventually, it always leads back to radicalizing my community to learn more about where they're from. Like, that's the pipeline is like, oh, this thing that you're interested in. Okay, here's the real world implications of that. Like, go to the library and check this out. It's really cool. And the beauty of that is that it applies to any subject. So I've been able to teach my community like physics and math and creative writing just through talking to them about my interests and theirs.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of goes full circle to what you said you originally wanted to do when you were first interested in science,
Mhm.
so or pursuing a career in science. So it's cool that that's kind of come full circle. I definitely love how Nimbly defies expectations as a comfort creator. She definitely has many passions and interests, which we talk about more in the full interview, which is, of course, linked down below. But yeah, it's just really cool to see how she combines her background in STEM, the environment she grew up in, her love of fashion, and a bunch of things into her streaming community. So not only is it like an affirming space, but I feel like it's also enriching too. Now I want to discuss a little bit more of how mediums outside of video games can be used as education tools. So I want to play my interview featuring Haryana Hook, where she talks about how she uses TV shows, books, cartoons, anime, etc., to get her audience more educated about things like social issues and other topics going on in our world. So let's go ahead and roll the clip. I definitely feel like both of you with your work are disrupting kind of like the status quo and what society has kind of accepted to be the standard. And so I'll throw this question to you, Haryana. You're very vocal on your channel about, problems in the cosplay community, anime community, in family entertainment in general. Why is kind of bringing about these uncomfortable, what some might call uncomfortable conversations. Why is that necessary for you?
I do consider myself to be a part of YouTube's cartoon community. And that is a very like male dominated space. Like beyond it being like white dominated, it's very male dominated too. Because a lot of my peers, like my friends that I have made in that community, are men. We often make videos about the same shows and the same films and all of that, but I noticed that a lot of my opinions would differ from them because I would be more like, because I study like a lot, like with African American studies, you're also learning a lot about misogyny too, just as well, because that is something that deeply affects Black women. Like literally, that's why the phrase misogynoir was created. I noticed, I was like, I really do enjoy their videos, and this is before we all became friends. I was like, I really do like these guys' videos, but there are just so many things about these shows that I want to speak about, and I see like no one's talking about them. And I was like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll speak up about these things. I remember there was one video I made about Gravity Falls, and it was about Gideon and how he was just freaking creepy, and how a lot of people just excused his behavior. And I was like, no, like what he did was wrong. He literally kidnapped Mabel. She didn't have to forgive him for doing that. Like, it would just be like a lot of shows would have like a lot of like misogynistic undertones, and it was more frustrating because the fans didn't quite understand it. I'm not trying to sound cocky or nothing like that, but like I've always been told that like you're a very outspoken woman and you can like help people like learn and all of that. Like you're very gifted when it comes to that. And I always told myself that if we want people to learn, because I'm really big on education, if we want people to learn, we have to find new ways to get them engaged with these things. So I was like, why don't I use like animation, art, books, all of that, the live action Disney Channel shows we grew up watching. Why don't I use these series and use this as a way to help people learn about like the social issues that are going on in our world? And a lot of people appreciate what I do. I mean, you're always going to have people that aren't going to understand you. It's whatever. And also like it was something Amira had said about, the way people would talk about like the Sims community. Oh, fandom is a very racist place. Like fandom racism is something fandom racism is something I talk about all the time on my channel because I grew up in fandom spaces because like nerdy Black girl like over here. But it's just like I realized like being quiet does not fix anything. Like that's the reason why I want to like speak up and talk about the things that like really matter to me. Like I don't have the privilege of being like you know how they say ignorant is bliss? I don't have the privilege of being able to ignore these things because like not only am I a woman, I'm also a Black woman too on top of that. Like I was like, those are just two things that are always going to affect my day-to-day life. And I'm not going to sit here and act like everything is okay and everything is sunshine and rainbows. Like these are things that we really do need to learn about. These are things that we do need to talk about. And there was another issue. Listen, these communities that I be in, I want better for them, but like at the same time, I'm like, it's something new every day. The cosplay community has a bad issue with racism. Are we surprised? No. Like, fandom is a very racist place. I wrote a whole book about it. The new book comes out like in 2 weeks about fandom nonsense. It's called "You Still Cannot Call Me Sis" because the white people in fandom have not learned. People always laugh at the title of the book when I tell them.
This shit real.
We noticed that white cosplayers would often tell, not just Black cosplayers, but cosplayers of color, that y'all just ignore the hate. It's not that serious, just ignore it. And I was like, you do realize that ignoring racism fixed nothing? I was like, the reason something was able to be done about the racism that went on in our world is because Black people spoke up and stood up for themselves. Like, I need y'all to go read up on the civil rights movement, please. Like nothing changes unless like the people in our community like start doing something. And sometimes I feel like I'm like, oh, I just a college student on YouTube. What good could I do? But it really did start to hit me that I did have like a positive impact on people. And like my main thing is just I just want people to learn from me. Like I'm like, if I helped you learn, I did my job. I've met people at in-person events, like not just like in the Atlanta area, but I've gone to like different cities in the United States, and they have all like told me, they're like, your channel has helped me so much. Like, it has helped me learn so much. I'm able to look through things through a more critical lens. I've actually started going and reading more books to learn about racism and all of that. Like, and they just like thank me for that. Like sometimes it does get to me a little bit, not anymore, but it did used to get to me where I'm just like, oh my gosh, people think I'm annoying because I want to talk about the issues in our world. But I'm like, no, girl, you're doing a good job. You're doing fine. People that feel that way towards you, just let them be. I just let them be.
I definitely resonate when Harry said that in order to get people engaged with social issues and the things going on in our world, it's important to find new ways to get them educated and just thinking about our world more critically. I feel like that's definitely the goal I've had with this channel, is using video games as an avenue to talk about larger societal issues and also, you know, understanding identity better. So that definitely just stood out to me. This is also kind of random, but another thing that came up as I was listening to this clip is also how other forms of games can also be used as education tools. So I did a live stream with a friend a couple years back where we played a board game called Her Story, which is a game that is about highlighting iconic and diverse women throughout history. So I'll go ahead and link that as a bonus in the description as well. We're about to enter into Women's History Month, so that's like the perfect segue. But that's pretty much all from me today. If this video and this type of content resonates with you, don't forget to engage with it. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of the things. Happy Black History Month. Remember that we are Black 365 days a year and 366 days a year on leap year. And you can hear from Black perspectives all year long. Don't forget about that part. And with that said, my name is Asmara and I will see y'all next time. Bye everyone.